Welcome back to my kitchen and welcome back to the channel, Sewing Back. If you are new here, I'm glad to have you. If you are returning, we're also glad to have you. So right now it is about 5:30 and I am working on dinner. I have some sourdough in the oven cooking. I am making a hot sausage spaghetti, and it's pretty easy. I got some farm fresh hot sausage that I picked up on John and I just got back. I'm going to do another video that actually has like a recap of where we went this weekend. We went to, it's actually Hendersonville, North Carolina, which is, I believe that's the apple capital of North Carolina. And I think that's the home of the University of North Carolina, or maybe that's just one of their locations. I don't know, but it had lots of agriculture. They have a huge agricultural center there. And it is where they held the Farm Where You Are, or Where You Live. I can't remember if it's Where You Are or Where You Live conference for the Carolinas. They have, on the way home, we stopped at lots of nurseries, and oh my goodness, North Carolina has just amazing roadside nurseries. They had amazing real food options for grocery stores, not just like a little small health food store here. I mean, you had a plethora. It was pretty amazing, to be quite honest, because it's just not something I'm used to seeing that much choice like that they had. And but we went to the conference, and very encouraging, very, at the same time, it's encouraging, but it's also like, because he's very much an entrepreneur, and that's what he speaks to in agriculture, that there is an entrepreneurial part of the process. And what I noticed, and this is just my observation, what I noticed was that there were, and I've noticed this even like on YouTube and social media, there's like two things here. And honestly, I think I'd say three things, but two that really seem to kind of meld here and one that's way over here. So the two that kind of meld around here are the homesteading movement and small farming, small farm business. And then you have what everyone will refer to as the big boys, you know, the way the monocropping and that kind of thing. And and I'm not gonna poo-poo monocropping, because we eat because of that. Do I think that it's needs work? Absolutely. I do not want to be a monocropper. That's me. But I think they have a very important job, and I think that there's a lot we could all glean from each other if people would communicate and have open minds, that maybe the way you always did something is maybe not the best way to do things, you know. So you can just, I guess, think on that, which I really do think that Joel Salatin, he really spoke to that, because he was speaking about that. And I'll have it in a clip, maybe after this video I'll be able to put a clip in that I caught of him talking about, you know, our average farmer is 60 years old, and that farm is not going to be handed down, or it's not going to be sold to a younger farmer, because for the most part of it, they're not there. And he said it'll be the first time in history outside of conquest where it'll just be taken over by maybe a business or another country or what have you will come in and I guess manage the land, the space, and what have you. And there's a lot of truth to that, because if you do some research, you will find out that there are countries who are buying up large portions of our farmland. And why? I don't know. But I mean, I have ideas, but I'm saying why that's allowed. You and we don't need comments about it. I don't, it's not what that's about. It's the thought that we're not doing a good job of passing the baton, so to speak. And that's what he talked about. And the truth of it is sometimes maybe that's within your own family, but sometimes it's not, because you may have a child that you have reared and you love, and they love you, and they love to eat out of the garden and stuff like that, but they want to be a doctor, or they want to be, they want to go in the military or something like that, or they want to fly planes, or, you know, they have their own dreams. And what he attributed a lot of the loss of the love of farming was that we haven't poured that into our young people as a whole, as a collective. And because there are young people had that been poured into them and nurtured, and not just nurtured, but once they had been nurtured, let's say they got educated, and maybe they understand some of the newer technologies. They understand some things that maybe are not the way we've always done it. Maybe they're better business people, to be quite honest. That was one of his points. And we don't give them a place at the table. Well, they're never going to come to the table. They're not going to pull up a chair. And I just thought that was such a fantastic point to be made. And because I have really good friends who have been entrepreneurs and built businesses and all that, and they thought when they were doing it, they wanted to do it, but they really in their mind were thinking, well, we'll have it to pass on to the kids, and then the kids can take it. And the kids had their own dreams and their own thoughts, and they didn't really want that. And so there is a dilemma there, you know. But I think it comes back to thinking about leaving a legacy and passing that legacy, building up that legacy to pass the baton. And that may not always be, you know, your kid, your grandkid. It could, but it also could be someone else who wants to step into that role, who has that desire. And you have to know that when you've run your race and you're done with that part of the race, and it's time to pass the baton. And so I thought that was, I think it was his 10 points. I can't remember the title of it, but it was essentially the 10 points of what needs to be going right, you know, within agriculture. And that was an important point. There were others, but that one really stuck with me. Hold on. Well, actually, I'll just show you. This is my sourdough bread. So it's been cooking for 30 minutes with the lid on. I don't know if you can see that. And now you take the lid off. That is very hot, and you cook it for 20 more minutes. As I was saying, I thought it was a great point, and it's something that we all should think about, you know, whether it's you want to farm or you want to garden and stuff. But what I was trying to say about these realms was, at this conference there were a good, I would say there were probably more people there who were homesteaders than folks that were necessarily farmers, who wanted to be small family business type farmers. But one of the things that was very interesting were a lot of these people who were there within the homestead movement was they were all coming to this realization of they have to become entrepreneurs because they can't just homestead. They still have mortgages, they still have to pay for land, they still have to pay for things, and it takes time to do things. And if you're working a 40, 50, 60 hour a week job to pay for said things, you don't have time to homestead. And so that was a part of his point, was that you have to have this entrepreneurial vision. And so a lot of the speakers, that's what they were speaking towards. Some of these were people who did start out as homesteaders, and now they are entrepreneurs. They have small farm businesses. They are successful. And to me, those were some of the best workshops to get to go to and glean from, because they were so free giving in their knowledge. They wanted to help you. They wanted to help show you how you could do this too. And that has kind of been one of our dreams, is that we could turn what we have into some kind of small farm stand, something, market garden. We're not totally sure how all of it's supposed to work out yet, but that has kind of been our hope. And in a lot of ways, we have felt a little deterred just because there's so much infrastructure that has to go in. Our land, having to remove all those trees that were like pre-Civil War, that were sick, it just takes time. It takes a lot of time. And then you're like, do you even have enough to market this? And how do I even market this, And what do I want to market? And so really trying to wrap your head around all of that. And you're also learning. And so it was so good to go and to have people who've already walked that road to help guide you into thinking, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about this? Yes, you can do it, but you do need to think about these things. And a lot of things you had thought of, but there were other things you hadn't thought of. And it was just so encouraging. And my mind is just kind of reeling from the whole weekend and the ideas. And I know John's was too, because it was interesting, because a lot of the classes I thought he was going to like to go to, I think he did a couple of them, but once he started hearing Joel Salatin talking, next thing I know, he's sitting down. He was going to go to a different class that was offered at the same time, and he didn't. He ended up skipping those classes, and he went to both of the Joel Salatin ones, because one, he's a really great speaker if you've never heard him, and two, he is just a treasure trove of knowledge. And so, and even one of the ones I went to that I was really excited to go to, and I got to meet, and I got her book, and she signed my book, was Jill Reagan from Whispering Willow Farm. If you're not familiar with her and her husband are the ones that bought Jess and Maya's farm. It was the original Roots and Refuge farm. And they've totally transformed it into something very different, a very profitable business, small market farm business. And she had a fantastic presentation with tangible things that was very helpful. And I know the conference is going to, they're supposed to have something up where you can pay to view. They videoed everything, so you can pay to view. I don't know if you have to do it as a whole or if it's going to be done individually. I don't know, but on their website, which I'll put in the description, it will have more information about that. They mentioned that at the conferences. And so it was just really helpful. It was so helpful. It was so exciting. And then to meet new people I didn't even know. And then Lorraine and Jason from Sow the Land, he had a chicken, talking about how to do raising meat chickens for a profit. It was very, very well thought out, very well done, and very encouraging to someone who wants to find that entrepreneurial market for what they want to bring. And I think one of the things that I really liked about Jill's presentation, and even Joel's presentation, he was talking about, and I can't remember who the person was. I have it in my notes. I don't have that in front of me because I took notes and all these. But he mentioned a man who has, I think it was 1.47 acres or 1.37 acres, somewhere in that realm. And he runs a multi-million-dollar business on that land in produce, just in produce. But he has honed it so well that there's every square inch of that he uses, and he knows how to use it. And I've never even imagined that someone could make, and not that I even care about making, I can't even fathom that amount of money. I've always been somebody who, whatever my portion is, whatever the Lord sees as my portion. But I think it goes to show how many of us are sitting on really good land, maybe not the skills, to develop said land, but a lot of us could be making money off of our land and our suburbs in particular. And so that was exciting. It was really exciting. It was very visionary, and so it really got us thinking about things we hadn't thought about before and ways that we might want to try to do something. And to be able to do those things well, and if we do those things well and we get to a place, then maybe we get to a place where we can expand that. And if the Lord blesses that at some point, that could be what we get to do for the rest of our lives. That is our goal. That is our hope. And that is a lot of the reason I started making a YouTube channel, because I kind of wanted to have something to show the process. And I thought that it might be helpful, because there's a lot of people in the same boat that John and I are in. We are in our middle ages of life. Some people say you're prime. I don't know about that, because I feel a lot of aches and pains and all that kind of stuff. But we're at a point where we've reared our children for the most part, and we're at a place where we can make a decision like this, or getting very close to making a decision like this. And so yes, if you are thinking maybe you're somewhere there, or you're thinking of that, and if you are a homesteader, it's nothing against homesteading or anything like that, but there definitely is kind of different schools of thought there between that and that small farm. And there's a lot of things that overlap between the two. And but it was kind of interesting. It was kind of interesting because you had, like I said, these different people of all ages, but there were a lot of young families who were all in, and they would call themselves homesteaders, but they are desperately trying to move to being that small, profitable farm. And I found that very encouraging, very encouraging. And so, and then you had others who were they just wanted to homestead. They just want to be able to grow food and, just be left alone. They want to do their thing and be left alone. Well, and that was what I heard one of them say, and I was like, okay, I can see that, and I understand that. And so, so anyway, it was very interesting. And like I said, it was very interesting, the speakers, because they were all really, for the most part, trying to move people to be thinking, you need to be entrepreneurs. It's like the final frontier, and you need to go for it, and not just get stuck in, canning enough food for your family, or growing enough food for your family, or meat, or whatever. And but they also were mindful of, a lot of us have laws and regulations and things like that. Land is crazy expensive. And so how can you do that even if you have a small space? And they offered a lot of good inputs. And so, yeah, so I'm totally, if you can't tell, I'm very excited about that. But at the same time, I need to get back to my dinner. And I just wanted to share it with you. But we stopped at a farm and I got some, I already have sauce. I have a lot of things in the freezer, but whenever I stop at these farms and stuff, I like to support them. And so I got some hot sausage in here and some peppers and onions, and they had some English peas. And so I've got those going. Of course, my sourdough's in the oven. And this was something I thought would really be helpful for you for the channel. If you watch the channel, some of you watched it, you really like when I cook. Some of you really like the gardening. Some of you like both. And if you're a both kind of person, and maybe if you're just a cooking kind of person and you're thinking about doing a garden, this is my homegrown, home can, it says pizza sauce, but it's pizza pasta sauce that I did myself from scratch. And some of this one was actually canned in my Kerry canner, or it's a Nesco / Kerry canner. And this one was on my stovetop canner. And because I had 19 jars that I did of this with the last of the tomatoes from last year. And I'm going to put it in here with my hot sausage, my onions, and my peppers. And the reason that I haven't opened it yet and I wanted to show it to you is because I want you to think about, in a small space, in some Tractor Supply, Firehouse subs, or Home Depot food grade buckets, you can grow some tomatoes and you can make your own pizza sauce. And to be quite honest, it might actually save you money if you've been in the grocery store lately. And you'll know what's in it, and it'll be healthy and good for you because it'll be things that you put in there. And so I wanted to encourage you. I want to encourage you, but I also smell my bread, so I want to check on it. It says it has 5 minutes, but it is smelling done to me. So let me pull this out. Hold the thought. Don't nobody want a burnt sourdough loaf. It's too much work. Yeah, I think that's done. So I'm going to turn my oven off right now because my other son is at school. So I don't need the oven for a little bit. Anywho, let me move this so I don't get burned. So what I want you to think about is when you cook at home, I think spaghetti is probably, next to tacos and pizzas and stuff like that, it's probably one of the big things that most people cook at home. And I just want to encourage you that you can grow your own and make your own, and you can preserve your own. Now, the great thing about tomatoes is I did pressure can these, but you could totally water bath can, because as long as you don't put peppers and onions in it, you can always add it. See, this has peppers and onions in it with my hot sausage. You can add some lemon juice or some citric acid, and you can water bath can, which is cheaper if you don't have a canner. So I say all this because it's garden time, pretty much wherever you live. And if you like to garden, you can't wait. You can't wait to start getting stuff in the ground, and or maybe you already have, but you don't want to put things in the ground if you don't like to eat them. So if you don't like pizza sauce, things like that, maybe don't grow tomatoes then. But if you do like pizza or pasta or whatever, consider growing some of your own. And so I'm putting this in here. And essentially, my sauce is just gonna simmer while I get my noodles. We're gonna do linguine noodles. I'm actually using einkorn pasta. And that's from scratch. My bread, that's from scratch. I milled my own wheat and I did that. Now the peas I didn't grow, but I supported a small farmer who did. And this will be a very healthy and nutritious meal. So I'm hoping that it might help you think about what is it that you like to eat? What is it that your family likes to eat? And if you're going to venture out into gardening, particularly for the first time, you don't want to grow something just to grow something. It's not cheap to garden. Soil's not cheap. Pretty much nothing is cheap. And so you want to, if you're going to take the time and the effort to do that, you want to grow things that you like to eat, that your family likes to eat. And I promise you, if you grow it yourself and then you eat it, nothing in the world tastes like something you grew yourself. And I always knew that with tomatoes, nothing like a homegrown tomato for a tomato sandwich or whatever. And I've always felt the same way about peppers. But now that I'm growing lettuce and collards and so many other things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And it tastes so good. And so anyway, I hope that maybe you were encouraged, and if none of that interested you, I hope you might consider growing some tomatoes and making your own spaghetti sauce to feed your family, because it's yeah. Is that what they do? I think that's what the Italians do. I'm not Italian, so I don't know. That's what I've seen. So I hope that that will encourage you. If you're interested in sourdough, I have a video on how to make a sourdough. I also have a video on how to make a sourdough loaf. I'll put the playlist in the cards at the end. You can check any of those out. And I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you being here. Sorry if I rambled a little. I'm a little excited. And that's a good place to be. It reminds me of my teaching years and going to conferences in the summer, like to get us reared up for the upcoming school year and planning and all that. That was very much how I felt coming out of this conference. And I just want to say about that whole Asheville, Hendersonville, North Carolina area, people were so nice, beautiful, just absolutely beautiful. And yeah, it was really nice. It was a really nice time. And I was really impressed with my husband and how excited he was coming out of it. And so it's always good when you're both on the same page. And I could never have conveyed what I learned to him if he hadn't been there. So anyway, and it was fun to get away. We enjoyed that and had some good food, and especially with all the options. And it was funny, most of them didn't come in a restaurant. It was actually small shops that they had made real food prepared that you could take. And we went back, we had a kitchenette and all that kind of stuff. And really wonderful, just so fabulous. So anyway, with that, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.